Hey guys, I have a pretty special game to show you today. I'm going to go over the Ponziani-Steinitz Gambit, which is something that I play with black fairly frequently. Um, Interesting positions in this game, and I want to show you a couple tricks that you guys can use too. So, Ponziani-Steinitz Gambit, it's e4, e5, uh, knight f3, knight c6. This is called the Italian game when you play bishop to c4. And instead of developing the bishop, I'm going to play knight to f6 here. And typically when I play this move, it's opening up white to play knight to g5, the fried liver attack. And this is something that I'm looking forward to. So when white plays knight g5, we're going to go ahead and grab that pawn on e4. And it looks like a bad move for black. White can capture here, white can capture here with the knight, white can capture here with the bishop. I've mentioned in a previous video that there's actually only one good move for white here. That's capturing with the bishop. Capturing this way with the knight is okay for white. Capturing f7 with the knight is actually a pretty bad move for white, which is also pretty common. So in this game, white actually plays the correct move, which is captures on b7 or f7 with the bishop, forcing us to move our king. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, and now this is the only position where we kind of have to hope that white doesn't play a particular move, and that move is d4. Even d3 is pretty good here, and the reason for that is typically what we want to happen, which with white did in this game, was capture our knight here. And I went ahead and captured the bishop on f7. Now if white plays d5, we can't capture this bishop, and we also cannot capture this knight, because if we do, white's coming in with check here on g5, and white is going to win the queen there. So that is something we want to avoid. Really have to hope that he doesn't play this move, because it's just a solid move for white, and it's playable for black, but it's not ideal. So in this game, white took the knight here on e4, and then we go ahead and grab the bishop on f7. And typically you're going to see a particular move from white, and that's queen here checking the king. Okay? And in that case, all we have to do is bring our king back to e8, and the king is pretty safe here. Now, white plays d3, and he's opening up attacks here, possibly moving his bishop somewhere, probably right here. But now what we're going to do is we're going to play d5, kicking the knight away, and normally the knight is also going to come here for white. What they're hoping is to deliver checkmate here on f7, hoping you don't notice that. And black here, what we're going to do is just block with the queen. We're going to play queen to f6. And if white trades, then we're going to have a good pawn structure in the middle here. We're going to be attacking the knight. This is actually a pretty good position overall for black. But we're also setting up a little bit of a trap. So when we move the queen here, it looks like we're giving up our pawn here on d5. And in fact, we are. So white went ahead and grabbed that pawn. But after white does that, we're going to jump up our knight here to d4. And we're threatening a fork now. So whereas white was threatening the fork before, we're threatening this fork here on c7, on c2, of the king and the rook. And white will usually try to defend it. If white, white in this game played knight to a3. Often white can play queen to c4, and I'll get into that in another video, but we're going to actually try to kick that queen away from the c4 square, allowing us to play this forking move. But in this game, white played knight to a3, trying to defend this c2 pawn from our knight. But in this case, I just took that knight, I snatched it up, they traded here, and we get the fork. So when it's all said and done, we are up 5 points of material right now. And there's really no way for white to continue their attack here with the knight and the queen. So all in all, a very good position for black. So let's see how this game continued. So white retreated the knight backwards. He is double attacking here, this pawn. There's a couple moves I could have made. I think rook f8 is one of the strongest moves, but I tried to trade queens, and white retreated. and continuing putting on the pressure and developing the pieces, I play bishop to e6, developing, attacking the queen. The queen moves back, and now I bring my rook over to d8, doubling up pressure here. Obviously, they're threatening to take this knight, but if I can maybe take this pawn with check, I have a lot of initiative in this position and still being up material in that spot. So this is okay. But white actually takes the pawn now. So when white moves his queen backwards, he does have two attackers here on this pawn, so he can grab this pawn. This actually opens up another tactic, which I didn't see at first, but I did spot a little bit later in the game. So first, I played bishop to f5 here. And I'm saying, okay, well, you know what? If you want to take my knight here, I'm going to take this pawn with check on your king. This does weaken my king a little bit because I don't have a piece now in front of my own king, which does come into play a little bit later. And we'll see that in a couple minutes. Okay, so I play the bishop here, and white actually moves his king forward, defending this pawn from my bishop. And now I spot the tactic. I'm not going to say it's a game-breaking tactic, but it keeps my lead in the game. So if you guys want to pause here, there's one move that is far ahead, like the best move in this position. So see if you can figure it out. I'll give you a couple seconds if you want, and then I'll show you what I played here. Okay, so the move is knight to c2. It seems strange because we're just giving up our knight. It was already under attack, and now it's even more under attack. But the point is, this queen is kind of overloaded defending. She's the only piece defending this knight, white's knight here on e5. So if white takes this knight, we're going to take white's knight with check. And that was kind of the key to this position. The other thing is, if white doesn't take the piece, which white doesn't do, white brings their rook onto d1 here. Then we can drop the knight back to d4, delivering check. And this is exactly what I did. The white king had to move back into the corner, and I grabbed the knight on e5, thinking this was a free piece. Now, it wasn't a free piece, because you'll notice something that I did overlook, although I'm still up material after this. But because I moved my bishop off of e6, now my queen and my king are lined up here. So after I take that piece, white plays rook to e1, obviously defended by the king. So if I'm going to take it, which I do because there's not really a better move, white can just recapture with check. So again, when it's all said and done, I'm up 3 points of material right now. You can see white has 6 pawns. I have 5 pawns, but again, or not again, but just to notice, this pawn isn't so great because this pawn is isolated. There's no pawns here on either side that can help defend it. And these pawns here are just terrible. Doubled rook pawns are some of the worst pawns in the game. Tripled rook pawns are worse if you had 3 in a row here, but that's very rare. So these pawns really aren't doing anything for white. Okay, and we've got 2 rooks to a queen, and we've got an extra piece over white. So all in all, this is a pretty solid position very solid position for black. It's winning. So okay, and you'll also notice here that this pawn's under attack right now by the bishop. So yeah, okay, I'm hit with check. So I move my king out of the way, getting ready to swing my final rook into the game, putting him right on the e-file here nicely. What should white do here? So white, I think, mouse slipped because he played queen to e4 and then resigned. So this is where the game ended, because obviously I can just take that queen. I think what white was trying to do probably was play queen to e5, but even this move is not great for white, because what black's going to do here is capture the pawn with check. And, white can't go here, because if he does, then we're gonna move one of the rooks, and we're gonna do a reversal and copy what white did to us and win back the queen. So white's gonna have to go here, and then we're gonna bring our rook into the game. And yes, white can take this pawn with check, but all we would have to do is move the king out of the way. There's not much more for white to do here, and the other issue is clearly that we're one move away from checkmate. And we've got a check here. So this is a pretty devastating position either way. But, you know, that was the game. Ended on a weird note, but I thought that this was a pretty interesting little trick, because what this shows is, in most games, even if your opponent plays the correct move, which is bishop captures on f7, there are still tricks up our sleeve with black here. We can still get really complicated, dangerous positions for white. And that's what we did here, and we got a W for it. So, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time.